Well, welcome to the show. My name is Jim Ferguson, and I wanted to give a little bit of an update on my recent trip to Geneva. I'd been invited to go over there to Project Geneva, which was a closed door meeting, along with some of the top doctors and leaders within the freedom movement, and I was very, very honoured to be asked to attend that event. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you to the great people that I met there. You know, there's people like Wiebren von Haga, he's been on the show before on interview. Anne Merrill Klusterman, who was there as our guest as Freedom Train International. And of course, my great friend, Larry Alex Taunton, who came all the way over from Alabama. And it was great to see Larry there. Larry and I have become good friends since we've sort of been discussing things over the period of the last year or so. And of course, I spent some time with him when I was over in the States as well. But there were so many people that I met there that are passionate about freedom. They're passionate about their own particular countries. And I was in great company. I mean, to list them all would probably take the majority of the time on this broadcast to do that. But there were so many great people that I met. And a lot of them were actually from the Netherlands as well, who I'd had the good fortune of meeting the last time I was in the Netherlands about 2 months ago. I was delighted to see so many people there. I'm going to give a shout out to Joey, who works with Wiebren as well. He's a great guy. But Richard and so many others that I met. And it was a real experience, I have to say, because I was with people that understood, you know, where we are with all of this globalism. And we were, of course, there to talk about the World Health Organization, the kind of things that are actually happening there, why they're and how they're trying to take control of our respective nations' sovereignty. And indeed, I went with a team to the World Health Organization. We walked in as bold as brass and we said, we'd like to meet with Tedros, Dr. Tedros. And we didn't get very far, unfortunately. He was hiding at the UN building. So we ended up going up to the United Nations. And we walked in and we once again asked if we could hand him a declaration that had been signed by senators and lots of doctors and different people. I signed it as well. But unfortunately, we didn't get to present it to him. But it still sent a very powerful message to the World Health Organization that, you know, there are solicitors, there are people that are saying that this is actually illegal. What they're trying to do is, in fact, completely illegal. And of course, you know, when all is said and done, we know that the World Health Organization is not really an independent body at all, because it's funded by Bill Gates. When I say funded by Bill Gates, I mean to the tune of 86%. So it's really the Bill Gates World Health Organization. Let's not pretend otherwise. And I don't know about you, but I have deep concerns about his involvement with the whole of the vaccine rollout, the profits that he made. He's openly bragged about how much money he made. I think that his priorities is in making money and controlling people. I don't think he's a fit and proper person, in my opinion, to be involved with such a body as the World Health Organization. But while I was there, we also attended the actual rally itself. And one of the things that became very clear to me was just how united we all are all across the world. Those people from Germany, there's representation from France, the Netherlands, Sweden, the UK, America. I met Americans who had come all the way over, and a lot of Canadians too. There were people from Brazil. There was people from Australia, New Zealand. Quite literally, I think pretty much all of the countries had somebody there, because I could see all the flags. And the speakers, of course, who were on stage were absolutely amazing. And I did some interviews with some of them, like Laura Lynn, Kim, and others that were actually involved in that whole process. So it was a very, very useful experience for me, and it clearly showed and demonstrated that there's a lot of solidarity between our respective countries. And, you know, I've spent the last 15, 16 months in a lot of discussions, usually over Zoom, with people in all of those different countries that we've just mentioned, talking about the need for unity, coming together as patriots, as nationalists, as people that love their respective countries and their freedom, coming together and uniting. Because we've got to understand that these globalists are extremely well funded. They're very, very smart. We've got to be honest. They are very clever in what they're doing. They're using a lot of things like fifth generational warfare, control of the media. They're causing policies to be created in Ireland and Canada and the UK and other countries to do with what they term misinformation and disinformation. But what they really are saying is, and what they're really doing is, they're silencing anybody that has an opposing view to their narrative. And of course, that includes the climate as well. I remember when Greenpeace were on the go, they were real sort of pioneers about protecting the environment. They didn't want to see pollution in our rivers or our seas. They don't want plastic going in there. And I have to say, I absolutely agreed with the sort of the Greenpeace ideology. But that's been hijacked by the globalists because they knew that if they could capture something that was in the hearts and minds of pretty much all normal people in the world that wants to protect nature and wants to look after our animal species and loves animals, they would be able to use that as a sort of a lever going into a wedge going into the sort of policy areas. Now, I happen to believe that the whole narrative on climate change is false. I think that it's a cyclical thing, and I think that there are many scientists who, of course, who would agree with that point of view as well. But unfortunately, many of these scientists depend on funding, and so if they go against the narrative, they get their funding cut. So we've got to be smart enough to know what's actually happening, what's going on. But one thing's very clear. While they talk about the Great Reset, what is actually happening is there is a great awakening. And that is inspiring from my point of view, because the reason I created Freedom Train International and put it into the planning about 16 months ago, and started to reach out to people around the world, was because I recognized that there was a lot of people talking about these things, which is important. But I wanted to do something more than just talk. It was important from my point of view, and I think for a lot of people's points of view that I reached out to agreed with me, that we needed to do something more tangible. So what Freedom Train International is doing is it's reaching out to people who feel the same way as we do, who we cherish our freedoms. We don't want to be censored. We don't want to be mandated, especially when it comes to experimental medical procedures, and you all know what I'm talking about. If people want to do that, they should be allowed to, if that's what they want to, but it should be an informed decision. And I remember when the whole pandemic thing kicked off, it was very clear to me and a lot of other people that this whole bribery, this whole sort of thing about you get a free hamburger, or you'll get a free lottery ticket if you go get vaccinated, or we'll give you a free taxi ride. I mean, it just, to me, it was something very false about it. And the other thing, I don't know about you guys, but when I heard prime ministers and presidents and world leaders all saying things like "build back better," do you remember that? Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand saying "build back better," and Joe Biden and Boris Johnson in the UK and Trudeau, they're all at it. What makes me wonder, though, is what is the power that's behind that? What is that controlling mind, and who is it? Who is that that's got such power and influence that they can cause monarchs and kings and presidents and prime ministers all to put out exactly the same narrative? And it's deeply concerning, because I don't know that I've got the clearer answer on who that controlling mind is, although I think I probably have my suspicions. And no, it's not Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is one of the globalists who is leading the World Economic Forum, the sort of financial arm of it. But you've got a lot more than that. You've got the Club of Rome, you've got the Council of 300, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I guess what I'm really sort of saying to you is it's easy to be despondent. It's easy to sort of lose hope. And of course, that's what they like to do. They like people to be so despondent that they sit at home in fear. And let's not forget the fear that they used to control the masses, to intimidate, to bully, to threaten. And when, that didn't work, then they said, well, you're not going to get, if you don't have the COVID pass, you're not going to get to go to the pub or to a restaurant or to the cinema. You're not going to get to go to the football match or the football game. These were things that happened, and then it got nasty. Then it got really nasty. They said, well, if you don't do it, we're telling your employers you're going to lose your job. And there were many ethical doctors, right from the word go, that called it. And in my book, they're absolute heroes because they stood up and they maintained their position, even although many of them lost their careers. And indeed, many of those top doctors, professors, epidemiologists, virologists have in fact been on this very channel to talk about their experiences, and they haven't shifted their position at all. They've been straight through right from the beginning that this was a dangerous thing to do. Well, I mean, one of the things that I'm watching closely, and I talked about this before I went to Geneva, and that was this emerging narrative that we're hearing about H5N1, which is the bird flu or the avian influenza. We've seen reports coming out of Texas probably about 3-4 weeks ago now, workers being tested with PCR tests, which basically can mean anything, to be honest. They can make that data look like anything. And that was once again, that was the sort of the scam that was being used to worry people, to intimidate people into thinking that there was something wrong and to go and get vaccinated. Now, I'm not against vaccinations, and I've never been an anti-vaxxer, but I've got to tell you, after what we've seen over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, I'm very, very skeptical and very, very cautious about anybody coming near me with a needle of any kind. And I think a lot of you are probably the same as me in that regard. But there's a lot of things going on. And once again, I called this about 7 months ago, I think it was. Maybe a bit more than that. To do with the conscription, I said, I think we're heading to war. Because that's just where I think we're heading. And I think here in the UK, Richie Sunak's called an election quite surprisingly early. But it's not really surprising to me because I've got a lot of people that are heavily involved within the military side in Britain who have been saying for some time to me that, in fact, Richie Sunak does not want to be a wartime Prime Minister. And he wanted out. When that was becoming clear, he wanted to make a move for the exit door. Which means that if there is a change of government, and let's face it, we don't know how that's going to go, but there probably will be, because the Conservative Party is now widely seen as being no longer Conservative. The Labour Party in the UK is no longer really Labour either. They've become globalist mouthpieces. So really, if whoever gets in, it's probably going to head to that. So I wanted to sort of draw your attention to that. The vast mass-scale illegal immigration that's taking place in the United States at the American southern border. The English Channel, of course, I've been across to Ireland extensively to talk to the people there and what they're experiencing with that on their communities. And it's really off the charts in Ireland. Now, I'm going to be going back to Ireland at a future point. I will let you all know when I'm doing that. But I'm also preparing to go to another 2 countries very, very soon. And I will give you more details about that once all the details have been confirmed. But I'm basically going to, once again, link up with people in the freedom movement, people who are passionate about their freedom and who want to live their lives in peace. So that's quite exciting from my point of view. Now, I'm going to say to you that, when I created Freedom Train International, it was pointed out to me that that's a very, very ambitious thing to do. I mean, it would be ambitious to do it in an individual country as well. But to do an international freedom movement like what I'm trying to do and what I have achieved, albeit it's still, we only launched it in January, is still a very ambitious thing to do. So I've been funding a lot of this myself. I'm a business entrepreneur, and I'm able to put a bit of capital into these types of projects, but they do cost money. And I would say to you, because a lot of people have asked me, how can we help? And there are business people. I mean, I know a lot of business entrepreneurs out there who watch this channel. And indeed, many of them have been on with me for interview. And I would say to you, look, we can't just leave it to 1 or 2 or 3 people. We've got to look at sort of building this momentum to get this big steam train really thundering down the tracks, to knock these globalists out the side, move them out the way. But I'm going to need your help to do that. And there are different ways that you can help to do that. I mean, you know, even as some of you are very, very generous, you actually buy me coffees, you know, and I've got a buy me a coffee webpage, and I'm going to put the links into all of this down below. That really helps me. The other thing that people are doing as well is I'm getting quite a number of people coming in, and they can come to my Patreon channel. So once again, I'll put links into that. And you can get personal messages to me and from me. And of course, there's going to be a lot more exclusive content going on to that very, very soon. And of course, by subscribing to Freedom Train International and paying that monthly subscription, you're about to unlock really very detailed content. There's a big upgrade that's just about to go live. And of course, that's going to provide very detailed information to all of the countries all around the world in terms of what to do, how to be prepared, how not to be afraid. I always say, be prepared, not scared. And it's really true. And it's about taking things sensibly, careful approaches. But we are going to be giving a lot of advice for people who have never really thought about this before. And we're going to show you exactly how to start. And there are things that you need to do before you even start to think about that. We're going to teach you what to do. And all of that is going to be covered in your subscription to Freedom Train. Then we're going to be giving detailed information to those who are more in the intermediate type level, and even all the way up to the advanced levels. Now, I've written extensively over the course of several months now, probably 6 to 8 months, on a series of books actually, although I'm going to make all of that available to our subscribers. I mean, these are books hundreds of pages long, and I've asked for one of my colleagues to look at, who comes from an educational background, to break it down into sections so that it's easier to digest. You're not just having to read a lot of stuff. It's this is what you need to do now, and then when you've got that complete, then you move on to the next stage. So it's very organized, and it's going to give you all the help and the assistance that you need. And so why am I doing this? Well, I want everybody that watches my channel here on X and on YouTube to understand that I'm very serious about the things I'm saying. Those of you that know me, you've heard me speak about this before. I never actually set out to do what I'm doing now. I've been in business a long time, been in politics a long time, but I felt that the need was to, sort of focus in on bringing people together in unity and harmony and love and peace around the world, but to be ready and prepared as best we can, because there's a storm coming. And I don't want to worry people. We've all been worried, and we've all had enough fear to last a lifetime over the last 3 to 4 years. But nevertheless, we've got to be realistic about these things. And I am concerned that we might be heading towards potentially another pandemic, possibly a bird flu pandemic. I've heard stories about vaccines already being flown into the UK. I've seen the media and how the narrative is going. So it looks like they're going to do that. And the other thing that concerns me is the American election. And those of you that know me or watch this channel also know that I love America, and I love the American people. They're great people, and I was deeply honored to meet thousands of Americans when I was across there last year, across 8 different states from North Dakota all the way down to Alabama. Well, it's the same in Canada, because I was over to Canada just after I came back from the States as well. And once again, people, I think, are people. And what I've learned over the course of the last year and a half, really, is that the kind of issues you're facing, whether it be Canada or Australia, the Netherlands, France, America or the UK, or any of these other countries, I found that we're actually facing the same problems, the same concerns about the uniparty system. Basically, that's where you have a party that pretends to be conservative or pretends to be left-leaning, but actually they're not. They're just globalists, and they're serving the globalist agenda. So I think a lot of people are indeed waking up to that as well. And Freedom Train International wants people to have a home, an online home with us as an online family, if you like, where you can come in a secure environment. You can ask for help or advice. And as a subscriber, you're going to be able to do that. There's no limit to what you can do on board when you come on board with us. we're going to be doing live conferences, live interviews, live discussions, as well as recorded material that's going out. And of course, there's a lot of printed material going to be on there as well. So I'm very excited about it. It's modeled something similar to the Tea Party movement in the United States. We're not so political, but we are very aware of the geopolitics of the globalists and the institutions that they are funding and supporting. And I want you and everybody around the world to understand why it's important to get ready and what to look out for. And I always like to give people hope. And I think that's the thing here. From my point of view, that's the way to go. And of course, many of you are very, very generous and you're very, very good to me. And you will do these things, either be a Patreon or, Patreon channel member, or you'll buy me a coffee, or you'll subscribe. And that helps the movement enormously, more than you can imagine, because every coffee that you buy or every little subscription that you take out collectively enables us, we who are in the front line, who are in the trenches, as it were, to fight the fight. But like any war or any war effort, the fighters can't do it on their own. We need fed, and we need the stretcher bearers, those to take care of our wounds. And like any battle, you need that support network around you. And we're no different to all of that. But I'm working hard to make this work. And it is working. And we only launched in January with multiple thousands of members already. But in order to be truly effective, I have to go to these other places. And I have to unite people behind that common cause, that purpose of freedom and autonomy and anti-censorship. And we are building a network across multiple nations now. And I'm very, very serious about getting on board and supporting those different nations that I'm going to, because they're people like us. We are humanity, and we are fighting back on behalf of humanity. But we need the rest of humanity to wake up to what we're really trying to do and achieve here as well, because we're doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it because we care about humanity. And I've often said, if you watch this channel for any length of time, you'll hear me saying this quite often, that I believe the globalists have declared war on humanity. And I really do mean that. I think they are principally evil. I think the people at the very top are really dark. And we've got to be the light to the world. I'm not saying that I'm not a perfect person by any means at all. But as the world gets darker, we've got to get brighter. We've got to work harder to combat what's going on. So it's just a bit of an update. As ever, I want to thank you all, especially once again, all the new subscribers. I did a little bit of a thank you video before I went to Geneva, because we'd got to the 220,000 follower mark. It was amazing, and I'm blown away. But we're thundering down the road now to the 250,000 mark, and I never ever thought that the channel would grow to the extent that it has, but that's been thanks to all of you. And there are some big channels that follow me, and I'm deeply grateful to each and every one of you who do that and to support the work that I'm trying to do. Because I believe that collectively, together, we are going to get through this, no matter what the storm is that comes, or the different aspects of it. And one of the things we mustn't be afraid of what's coming. We just need to be ready and prepared so that we can mitigate the outcomes of that. But anyway, I just want to say thank you once again. As I always like to say, you guys are the real stars of this show, and I'm deeply humbled by the levels of support and commitment and just people reaching out to me in so many ways. I try to answer as many of you as I can by either DMs or by the comments. I love to see your comments. I do read them, and it's quite a task sometimes for me to respond to everybody, but I do like to. And I sometimes set aside an entire afternoon just to do that. So I am deeply grateful to each and every one of you. And I want you all to know that I'm fighting for you. And together with each other, we're going to get through this, no matter what the globalists throw at us. Thank you once again. We'll speak soon. This is Jim Ferguson. Bye-bye for now.